and child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Fight CPS with Sabrina, and I am here today with Samantha and Elijah. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good. Okay, well, I guess I'll start by saying that we had a cancellation earlier, and I reached out on a Facebook group, and I cannot even tell you how many responses I got, and it just breaks my heart to see how many people are actually going through this right now. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and so last minute. So if you want to go ahead and start, you can tell us, I guess, about your whole deal with being in foster care yourself, and then we can go from there.
Okay, I'm going to keep my story somewhat brief because I feel like
Okay.
it's not the main highlight of what we want to speak about. I was put in the foster care system about 4 years old, myself and my younger brother. We were with a single parent, our mother. I've been in and out of foster homes. I was in and out of foster homes for about 6 years, maybe 4 or 5. Did not feel like CPS was for children. I felt like it was in the better interest of the government. I did not feel protected as a child. I was put in a home of a few abusers. I have trauma still to this day as a 31-year-old woman. I have sought therapy. I tried to speak about my story. My mother was criminalized. She did not get any sort of resources. And like I said, I've been in and out of therapy, and I still have flashbacks. I have disassociation. I've gone to therapy for this. My therapist told me that the amount of trauma that I endured as a child in the CPS system was the equivalent of a grown man going to war 2 or 3 times. As an adult, I would say a few months ago, I had a flashback, which apparently trauma can appear at any time in your life. And I had a flashback of being a child in one of my foster homes and remembering being locked in the closet. I don't know if I said or I did something that the foster parents didn't think was appropriate, but I was locked in the closet as a little girl, and I was in there for hours. And I had asked my brother, did this really happen? And he said, yes, it did really happen to you. I don't remember exact details, just highlights. You know, there's a lot of trauma that goes in with this being a child in the CPS system, and one of the things I remember is going in front of a judge to speak as a 7-year-old kid, and them asking me, does your mom hit you? Does she abuse you? Does she call you names? Does she touch you inappropriately? And I would say, no, she doesn't. But even after sitting there and testifying to a judge, they didn't take me seriously as a kid. I remember one instance where, as a child, I had fallen asleep at my mother's house during a visitation, and I had my hand up against my face, and it left a red spot on my face. And my foster parents had come to pick me up, and they said, did your mother hit you? And I said, no, I fell asleep with my hand on my face, so it left a red mark. And they were trying to coerce me into saying that my mom did something that she didn't to make her look bad. And I mean, these are the kinds of things that kids are dealing with, is being told to lie about their parents, being fed information on what to say. And I mean, that's not even the tip of the iceberg. For a child, and a former child, having been in foster care myself, it's very traumatizing to get passed around from home to home and feeling like you don't belong, you don't have a place in the world. And the government does it under the guise of protecting children and making sure that they're out of bad situations, when on the other hand, they continue to put kids in more horrible circumstances, and they don't understand that these kids are always going to be looking to fill that void. There's nothing there that can replace the parents. There's not. And I'm not talking about the crazy parents who deserve to have their kids taken away. I'm talking about the victims who have kids taken away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot to go through. It's funny that you say that you had to ask your brother if that really happened to you. I kind of had the same thing going, and for years I wasn't sure if I was crazy or not with all the abuse I went through. And years later, I talked to my brother, and yep, it did happen. And so I feel you on that one. Yeah, go ahead.
The unfortunate thing is my brother and I were separated a lot of those times. There was only a few instances where we were in the same foster home. And a few times I was able to go stay with my mother, and he was not allowed. He does not want me to get into the details of his story, but my brother had it way worse than I did. And I'll keep it at that, is he had it a lot worse than me.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. The system is just so horrible, and it's the kids that are suffering the most, and it's just so heartbreaking. Yeah. So after you went through all that, were you in foster homes like all the way till 18?
I was in custody until 10, and my brother and I my brother was adopted, and a family member had taken guardianship of us, and she had her issues. I'm just fortunate that I was released to a family member instead of having to stay in the system.
Yeah.
But there's still trauma there too.
Yeah.
That family member.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's really unfortunate. So what is going on now with you at CPS?
Not me directly. I am I guess a bystander, a witness. I'm involved with Elijah. We're engaged, and it's his family that is going through the situation with CPS. I am just there as an advocate because I've gone through it myself as a kid.
That's wonderful. Okay. I mean, it's wonderful that they have you for that. Not wonderful for the situation.
Yeah.
So can I ask what is the situation? Elijah, do you want to tell us a little bit what's going on?
Definitely. So sometime back, I believe it was the 5th of July last year, there had been a prior incident of particular relevance to the children being taken away. And my dad was arrested without, a year after the incident. Seemed a little strange. But yet a year later, after he was arrested, which turned out to be on unfounded accusations, he was while he was in prison, CPS decided to show up, asked barely any questions, made a lot of assumptions, took a lot of false accusations to heart by the person who was actually the one who was accusing was the one primarily responsible for anything that was really happening that was negative in the children's lives, but their accusations were apparently enough for CPS to just snatch up the kids. And I say that abrasively because they literally did just all but kidnap the kids without any warning, no communication with my dad. My dad's in jail waiting for a decision. He has had no investigation, no one's looked into it, and he had no idea what was going on. And so they just, snatch him up one day on the way to work, snatch up his kids while he's in jail. Absolutely ridiculous and appalling.
Yeah, poor kids.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, poor kids. Can I ask how many kids we're talking about?
Yeah, I believe it is 7 total.
Okay, wow. So they just show up and snatch them up real quick without any notice?
Pretty much. There was only really 30 minutes to an hour, maybe, total prior to that, which we were talking to the sheriffs and such about why our dad had been arrested. Like I said, for a completely different situation. And so in the process, CPS shows up. Nobody knows why. We end up finding out, sometime later that the accuser was a member of the family who was, having, a bit of a fit with my dad, I guess. And some things that she had done wrong, she felt were going to get her in trouble. And so she wanted to badmouth my dad, in other words. And she kind of just led on with that. And like I said, the accusations were the only thing that they based taking the children on. There was no reality, no investigation, no even ask for a second-hand account. Anyone else who had anything good to say or didn't have something negative to say was ignored.
As far as I'm aware, is how the process goes. If when CPS is asked to mediate, they're supposed to come into the home and investigate before they even remove the children from the home. And they are supposed to work with the parents and have a game plan so the kids are never removed from them. But that never happened for them.
Right. They always say that their best interest is to keep the kids with the family as long as possible, but that has not been the case. Time and time again, I keep hearing the same things. And here in California anyways, they go off of hearsay. And that is totally fine with them. They don't care. They don't have to show any kind of evidence. And they don't really tell you that, the social worker gets to bring to the court, the situation and make their recommendations. And it's our job to basically show the courts that recommendation is BS or, whatever. But they don't tell you that, and people don't just know this. And so time and time again, people are losing their kids over hearsay. Yeah. And it's just atrocious.
We know that a lot of statements that have been presented in court were fabricated, are not true. And it doesn't seem like anyone had taken the time to review those statements or even counter them. It's just apparently the last time that they were in court, it was, oh, well, we believe everything's true. And that was the end of it.
Definitely. The judge had one thing to say. She said, we find all accusations to be true, in other words, in some legal terminology. And like I said, from the start to the end thus far, just accusations being soaked up and just nobody gets to testify otherwise, and no one even has the opportunity to. And and what we have had a chance to say, it's not primarily been in court, except on one occasion, which had nothing to do with that case. So no one wants to hear the positive.
Of course not.
The negative. They want a reason to take the kids away, make them suffer, and claim to protect them.
Yep, they make a whole lot of money when they take children away. So it's in their best interest to keep the kids away, unfortunately.
We're in the state of Missouri currently, and that's where the kids were taken.
Definitely.
They are, there's a case that's ongoing currently that a mother sued the state of Missouri, and I think it was 31 judges had recused themselves, but the whole premise is that they they were colluding to traffic children for profit. We know now that there is incentive for the government and for CPS to adopt children. They do get paid for those sorts of things. They do get paid for how many children are in the system. They also get paid for how many children are in the system that also have disabilities. They get paid more for that sort of thing. And we honestly feel like it's more of a criminalize the parents, take the kids away, make money than looking out for the kids.
Absolutely. It's exactly what it is. Yep. And even kids that come into the system that are, perfectly fine beforehand, they like to find excuses or reasons for them to have disabilities for them to get that extra benefit. And I found out recently that teachers also are getting paid benefits for starting a case with CPS, which is horrifying.
Physicians do it as well.
Definitely.
Anyone that has to mandatorily report suspected abuse gets some sort of incentive at this point.
Yeah. It's just horrible that they even allow this to happen,
Definitely.
It's so heartbreaking. It really is. So where are the kids now? Are the kids in foster care? Or are they at least with family members?
No, that was never offered. As far as I know, and with my experience being in the foster care system, they're supposed to look for next of kin to possibly take the children. We were never approached. Neither were any of the older siblings to take care of them. And they've actually made jokes in court that the kids are just going to be adopted and not go through the process of possibly having other caregivers. They are in foster care, but they are split up.
Apparently the fate of these children is a subject of humor to these legal associates.
They think it's a joke. They were laughing about it, as far as I know. I was not there, but I was told things about the court date, and they were
It's disgusting. Oh my gosh. To laugh at something like that, that's unbelievable. I can't believe they split the kids up. Well, I can believe it, but like, what are they thinking? They're just making things so much worse for everyone when they do these things. So, have you guys come forward to say that you wanted to take the kids or your other siblings?
We've told the lawyer.
Yeah, we have suggested this, but this was something I was going to elaborate on as well. So we pretty much have been demonized as well, along with my dad, by the accuser and the family. The accuser that was in the family at the time that caused this whole situation. She has all but demonized all of us, and so none of us really are holding out a lot of hope right now for being eligible for that, because we feel like they're all colluding with each other, and that's kind of probably not going to turn out to be a very likely option. But you see, at the same time, they are, I feel like they are, as you said before, kind of coming up with reasons to keep the kids in there. And as she said in the past, there was a financial gain for them having issues and such, and their hospital visits and such that they were given recently, apparently, or during the time, shortly after the time that they were kidnapped, were falsified. The results were falsified, and my parents received them recently, apparently, and they were clean reports, but they had made up reasons. They had falsified things. They had come up with things that were wrong with the kids, and there are a few things, from my understanding, that are potentially a problem now that were not a problem in the past.
Yeah.
We all know it, but you got these caretakers with these big dogs licking the kids on the mouth. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to develop issues. It's a dirty environment.
Yeah.
And I think every single one of the caretakers has some form of pet and such in the house, and I'm sure that despite their best efforts, there's going to be some kind of accumulation of germs and things, and and things are left behind by animals, and we all know that animals like to roll and things that they shouldn't, and so it makes for a pretty nasty environment.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So have they even set up any kind of visitation between the kids and anyone?
No, and actually, it's been several months, and I had to bring up that I said, hey, my mom got visitation when we were taken away.
Yeah.
They didn't even get Zoom phone calls until a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And no physical visitation until like a month from now?
So I believe the only visitation they've had is, as she said, on Zoom calls. But that is, you consider that was July 5th last year. It's been almost a whole year since my dad has heard, his kids' voices. He's seen their faces. He's had nothing, no communication with them whatsoever. And apparently this entire time they've been crying for their dad, and apparently it was such an issue at one point that they said, oh, he can't visit because, they're so obsessed with, the topic of wanting to see their dad that it's not a healthy thing. It's like, I would believe that if somebody's that certain they want to see their parent, that not only is that parent not the one who did the things that they're being accused of, especially when the other parent is the one they do not want communication with. So that being their mother and my dad being the one that they do want to have communication with, you'd think that would be a healthy solution for them.
Right.
But they don't seem to have any concern whatsoever for the mental state of these children. And if, to be completely honest, I would have to say that I think that they're traumatizing them.
Yeah.
And I think it's based partly as well, on the fact of that my dad and, his bloodline and the obvious bloodline in his, being carried on in his kids is being, discriminated against, because my dad is partly Native American, and not only is he a man who's not being given equal rights because of men's history in the past, but he's being made out to be a part of that as if he had done something wrong, and the mother's being given complete favor, and he has had no visitation or anything, and just the overall situation and the way that the kids are being treated and honestly tortured. I believe that has, in large part, it has to do with the fact that they're partly Native American. I'm not seeing any equality or justice for all whatsoever, and like the founding fathers said, e pluribus unum, out of one comes many. We are all to be equal here, under the guise of the plan that the forefathers had for our country. And I don't see that happening.
No, it's not happening. Gosh, and I've been hearing a lot of stories lately about like Native Americans, and they're also, I guess, having CPS issues. I've just been hearing a lot of it lately. I know here in California, I don't know about Missouri, but when they remove the children from your care, they're supposed to have an initial visit within 72 hours. And that is set up so the kids feel safe or they know what's going on. So the fact that they're not doing that,
it did not happen.
Yeah.
That's not
they were not given that either. No one was.
No one even knew where they were up until, 6 months ago?
Yeah, no one knew until probably less time than that, from what I recall, how long ago.
Until we started pushing for more information.
Yes, we started to push for more information,
and that's when we did something.
That's when we have heard anything about them. No one was given a visit. Actually, on the day of the incident when they were taken away, my oldest brother walked over there. He's very overwhelmed emotionally, and he's asking if he can give one of them a hug. And that woman turned around and yelled at him, and if not all but screaming at the top of her lungs, she said, "No, you cannot." Told him to go back where he came from. Like putting him back in line. It's like, well, he is a family member, okay, and first of all, and secondly, we are not the ones. Even the accused is not guilty. We are not guilty either. We have nothing to do with this. We happen to be his sons. That is all. Other than that, we have no relation except that they are our siblings. We're not the one being accused. In other words, we should have had rights to see our family members as well, but we weren't given those either. We were not given the option to take them into custody. We weren't given the option to care for them. We weren't given the option to be their caretakers. We were actually told we couldn't have that option for some time. And at the same time, we're you would think that they would consider family members getting to say goodbye to these kids that they're tearing away from their family would be a positive, not a negative. And I didn't see any kind of concern, as I said before, whatsoever for their mental state. And I honestly feel like they're being, well, they're really tortured. They're being tormented.
And they're traumatizing not only the children, but the family and the immediate circle as well. And that social worker has a lot of bad reviews under her name because this family is not the only one that she's done that sort of thing to, where she's just been really aggressive and just hateful, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, it's not only this family that's complained against how she handles things.
Yeah. You know, they have a very strange hiring system when they hire these workers. And we have another host for our show, Miss Georgette. She, on one of her videos, explains that, you know, her niece went to apply to become a social worker. And, you know, they go to school for this. And then they called her in for the interview and had her fill out some forms and then told her that she would not be able to be a social worker because she would care too much. And they can't have that kind of a person working as a social worker.
Yeah,
definitely. I've said that in the past. I've said that as well. But, you know, to be completely honest, God bless the people who do this kind of work because Lord knows there are people out there who do hurt kids and do things that are unjust. But in this case, it's just not, and they've had no regard whatsoever for the innocent or party in the situation, being the children and my dad. And they've honestly had no concern even for the guilty in the party. So I don't believe they have any intention that is anything but self-motivated, you know, for financial gain thus far.
Yeah. So you were saying about your dad, he's not in custody anymore, or he is?
I'm sorry?
Is he still in custody?
Custody of the police?
Like in jail, yeah.
No, he was released about 10 days later.
He was released. Okay.
Of course, they hooked up the kids prior to that, so he had no say in it. And then they tried to, you know, ultimately cut him out of the case. They told him he was not part of the case until I believe maybe a week ago, maybe. And he was not given a DNA test to prove he was the biological father or anything that would, you know, allow him a chance. In other words, you know, any fighting chance whatsoever legally, you know, through DNA or anything. He was denied that. He wasn't even offered. And anything that he was offered was not until the time after, you know, his opportunity to do so. So it just seemed as if everything was just so brilliantly coincidental. You know, everything was just timed so perfectly wrong. You know, he was not given an opportunity to actually act on anything.
And the supposed case against him was dismissed. So my thought process is if he really did those things that he was accused of, wouldn't he still be in custody or have a case against him? But when we did our research online, the case says it was dismissed as if he never got those charges.
And the case was dismissed.
Right.
You see, he was released without bail on the grounds of that being falsified to some degree. So I would have to say, which I think is what she's trying to get at as well, I'd have to ask the big question that is, you know, why, if that is the reason why they're going to take them away, the case that he was being, you know, involved in, that he was being charged with things potentially, and the whole reason they arrested him, if that is the reason why the kids are going to be taken away initially, you know, was their reasoning, if that's the reason why, then why, whenever he was dismissed, are they still kept in custody? You know,
right.
And no consideration whatsoever for putting them back in their home.
Yeah. You know, I kind of went through something similar, and the police came into my house and they wanted to search my house. I told them they had to wait for my mom to pick up my daughter because I didn't want her to be in the situation. They arrested me because of some old prescription pills that I had, like on the back of an old shelf, even though they were mine, I guess because they were expired. So they took me to jail. And of course, it was like on a Friday on a holiday weekend. So I was there for several days. I saw the judge. They dropped everything. They said, we don't have anything here. They let me go. So I'm thinking, okay, great. Now I can go get my daughter back. I went to family court, and that's when they sprung it on me that, nope, we are actually family court. We are completely separate. And they had a whole bunch of false allegations that they said my daughter gave them. The day before court, my daughter admits that Nana made me lie. None of it's true. So I'm thinking once again, okay, well, they're going to drop it all and I'm going to get my daughter back. Nope, not even close. And like, you're right. I mean, it's just kind of like obvious, like if they drop the case against him for the reason of the children getting taken away, wouldn't that be like enough for the kids to go back home? And no, they just come up with like one thing after another. And it's just really, really messed up how it works, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely. And I would say also that that being the reason why, yes, they should have been potentially released afterwards, but then we ended up finding out separately a little while later that it was due to her allegations on a separate level. And even now, you know, because they arrested for the reason of, and then it turned out
the other parent, not me.
Yeah, no, I was actually about to say that it sounds like a lot of this might be coming from the other mom.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry if I didn't clarify, the mother of those kids was, you know, the one who had made the allegations. My dad was the one being accused. So it turned out that her accusations were the reason why, and they were being sneaky about it. You know, they wanted to send out someone to arrest him with that person didn't even know why, like it was you know, like a bounty hunter, honestly. And he went out and got my dad when my dad was removed from the picture. In other words, out of the way, unable to defend his family. They want to swoop in like a bunch of angry predators and tear him up, you know, and they took him away. And then he has no, you know, contact whatsoever with them. And then it turns out later on, oh, you know, well, what do you know? It was actually because a different set of accusations had nothing to do with the reason for which we supposedly arrested you a year later after saying we couldn't find you when you've been right here. The report was filed right here where this happened on your property for what you're being arrested for, but we couldn't find you for the life of us for a year. He spends all day at home or all night at home. You know, he goes occasionally for work, you know, and of course, and comes home and he's never anywhere else. You know, and then they look for another member of the family and they're like, oh, she's in Connecticut. Like, no, that's another person with the same name. She also is on the same property. You know, it's kind of concerning, honestly. If you thought that, you know, if someone was really responsible for these things, they wouldn't be able to find them, it feels like, you know, but yet the person who's involved, who is an innocent party, you know, everything's just up in the air. You know, they have no chance, in other words.
Right. Gosh, what a mess, huh?
Definitely.
So, wow. So nobody has been able to have visits this whole time.
No.
They've done Zoom calls, but I don't, as far as what we were told is that the kids don't really get to speak. It's almost as if they're being coached on what to say and they don't really interact with the parents. They kind of just look off to the side or they'll ask questions and the kids won't answer. So it's almost like they're not being able to visit them at all.
In other words, it looks like they're being coached, you know, into what to say, and they're fearful of the person, you know, because they keep looking like, what do I say? Is this okay? Am I going to be in trouble? You know, so they're obviously being, if not, you know, coerced into saying certain things and through the legal proceedings. They seem to also be, during the Zoom calls, being coached into what to say, what not to say, and what to do and what not to do. They're not being allowed to be themselves. You know, they're obviously under a constant oppression, you know, and they're being tormented, as I said before. But then again, at the same time, another thing to account for, I believe, is the fact that they're, mid-spring this year is when the Zoom calls started, I believe. And my other concern with that, aside from the obvious, you know, nobody got to see the kids or anything or have any visits, I as well, again, not being one of the accused parties, and I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just a sibling. I didn't even get to see them. I still have not even seen them on a Zoom call.
Nope.
You know, my dad got to see him on Zoom call. Good for him. You know, but at the same time, no visitation physically for anyone in their family. Like, can you tell me why? There's one person who's been accused of something, and the entire family can't visit. You know.
Yeah.
Any of the siblings.
We personally feel a lot of laws are being broken.
Definitely.
in that aspect about visitation and just the rights of the family members, the rights of the kids. We definitely feel like they're doing shady things, and they've probably broken quite a few laws at this point on how they're supposed to.
I'm positive they've broken many laws,
Yeah.
but definitely.
Sounds like it, yeah. And you said that they separated the kids, right?
Yes.
Have the kids been able to have visits with each other?
We don't know for sure.
From what I've heard, briefly here and there, they have seen each other, but for the most part, no. They were taken from home as a whole. They were split up into other groups and then kind of placed in different areas. I believe in different counties, different cities, and they're all kind of just too far away from each other to do if they wanted to.
I always hate when I hear that they separated the kids, you know? That's just, for the kids, it's so sad. It's already such a hard situation to deal with already, and then to split them up. And a lot of the times they do it on purpose, so that way they have a way of, you know, coercing and manipulating the kids into saying what they want. They would bribe my daughter with ice cream to say what they wanted my daughter to say. And I've heard it a lot. Too
It's
much.
intimidation, you know. And then just to follow up on your point there, you know, not only is it intimidation, but then again, at the same time, where's their moral support? You just put them through a trauma that most adults don't go through. As she said, a grown man going to war 3 times in his lifetime, you know, here, this is an actual combat scenario, you know, that is the, yes, like she says, it is sort of a combat scenario, but that is the extent to which these kids are traumatized, as in her case. So now you consider all of his kids, you're going to willingly put them all in that situation. When someone educated can tell you that is the kind of trauma, the extent to which they will be traumatized in that system. And where's their moral support? Because you split up the whole family. And now they don't even, you know, but then again, isn't it so convenient because you can now intimidate them without them feeling like they can look to their other family members and be like, I'm protected, you know, because they feel alone. You got to intimidate them one at a time, as it seems as they did in her case, where they tried to single her out from her brother and intimidate her, you know? And so the children were not allowed to visit each other. I believe it was an entire 8 months before any of them were allowed to see each other, and they were all split up.
Until his father got a lawyer and we really started pressing and asking questions. That's when somebody decided to do something. But they, I feel like they would have let it go on longer.
As it is, they're going to have to go to counseling probably for the rest of their lives for what has happened thus far, as well as, definitely, as well as she has had to do. And yes, she can back me up on that because she has lived it. And from the extent to which my own personal life even has been affected by, you know, my personal life with her has been affected by her traumas, and her own personal life affected by her traumas. I can see my family's going to have a long road, you know, when it comes to therapy and things to overcome what they've done to our entire family, honestly, and especially the parents as well as the kids, but the siblings as well. I mean, she's traumatized by it even more so because she's been there, but just because she's with me and she hears about it, she's appalled. I mean, the basic loving instinct, you know, of a human being with a heart, you know, you'd think somebody would be concerned. But as you said before, the kind of people they hire are definitely a very particular breed. And like I said, God bless the ones who are doing the right thing for doing the right thing, because we know there's bad people in the world. But this whole situation seems to be exactly those kinds of people dealing with the children involved. Is the people of the world that are a little more predatorial.
Right. And Samantha, I feel so badly that, you know, you guys are going through this. This must be bringing up so much past trauma for you on top of what you guys are already going through.
It's living a nightmare again. I'll hear kids say how they're being punished, and I'm like, that happened to me. The younger sibling said he was locked in a closet, and I was like, I was locked in a closet too. Like, it's not funny, but it's crazy how similar and coincidental it is. It's not just me. It's not. I mean, it's thousands, millions probably at this point since I've been in foster care that this has happened to, and all of our stories are really close, really similar.
Very similar.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. You know, and the only good thing, I mean, not good thing, but you know, for the kids is that at least further down the road, when you guys get all this worked out, at least they can come to you and talk to you about it, because it's really difficult to talk to an adult about these things in the first place, but especially someone who has never gone through any of this before. So they're kind of fortunate to be able to have that, so they can come to you later on and be able to talk to you about it. Have you guys been able to talk to the attorney on the case? I guess it would be your dad's attorney.
Yeah, so there has been several attorneys as far, one or two, I believe maybe one, did not quite pan out. So there's a new lawyer over it now. So it's not the same. It's not been the same attorney the entire time. One is less informed, the most current one. But at the same time, we have not had much of a chance to say anything, as I said in the beginning. Not only in court, but we also have not really had the chance to take our dad's defense or stand in defense of the kids or anything thus far. We have, and literally the last time we were in court, there was the only ones invited to testify whatsoever was in opposition to my dad. And they, as we said in the beginning, immediately stated that they believed, you know, the adjudication was 2 weeks ago. And they had simply said, the judge had simply said that she came to a decision that all these things, these accusations that were investigated whatsoever, and we had no commentation on, or in defense of our dad or one way or the other, or even just our own life experience, we didn't get a chance to say anything. Only things that were said in opposition to him were taken seriously and decided on. And they decided to move forward saying, oh, we can just believe this with no investigation. Yeah.
Isn't that something? And then are we talking about a public defender, or is it a private attorney?
Well, I'm not sure necessarily whether he's. I don't think he's a public. He's a private attorney, I believe. He wasn't issued by the state. I'm trying to recall the interpretation there, but definitely. I mean, at the same time, you know, there was also accusations regarding whether we had running water and electric and such, and which we had all of that. We just, you know, we live in the country by choice. You know, it's not like we go out there and arrest every Amish person or take all their kids because, oh my God, you're Amish, you know, like, oh, you know, someone help, you know, these kids because, you know, like, oh my God, you're Amish. It's like, no, you know, but they have more than the Amish do. You know, they had electric, a whole solar system running everything they needed, more if they wanted to, water running, you know, everything was fine. And they walked in that house, took pictures, apparently took, you know, statements, and followed the accuser, as I said before, and just kind of said, oh, there's no water, you know, oh, there's no electric. There's, you know, they don't have anything they need here, you know. Oh my God, scratches and bruises on kids' knees. It's like, yeah, kids play.
Yeah.
They have scratches and bruises anywhere else. No, they're not being abused.
It's normal for kids to have scrapes and cuts all over. You know, they play.
Kids play outdoors, and they're playing outdoors because they're on a farm. They couldn't even, you know, they didn't even care to justify my dad to the extent to activate the sink, you know, and say, oh, there is running water. What's this lady talking about? They didn't care. It all seemed very self-centered, you know, very selfish. Their motivations for doing so, because they didn't even activate the sink. Hell, the lady didn't even know what a solar panel was, who was investigating. Like, wow, you know, like, tell me you don't know who Elvis is, you know, like something you can't not know. In other words, you know, she didn't even know what a solar panel was. And it's like, oh boy, help. So, you know, somebody help us. We don't, you know, like, that's concerning.
And the reason why I asked if it's a public defender or a private attorney is because the cases seem to go a very lot different whether you have a private attorney or a public defender, because the public defenders all work in the same system as the CPS workers and the judges and the court. They all work together with everything. But with a private attorney, you have like a much better chance Have you guys tried to reach out to your dad's private attorney to see if he can do something about all this?
Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to reach out currently. My life's been very busy, but he has obviously reached out to his attorney and my mother and such as well. They're dealing with their attorney, and we're going to potentially speak to the attorney soon at a not yet quite established date, as far as I'm concerned. But we are planning on doing that. And we're going to tell our side of the story, and hopefully he can make some use of that, because the prior lawyer definitely did not make any use of those, vital bits of information.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I would try to like get as many of your family members and friends as possible who knows it, like the family, and like write witness statements or whatever you want to call it, letters to the judge, and explaining that, that mom is probably making a lot of this up, and the kids are better off with dad, or whatever the situation may be. So that way the courts can see that this is not just a one-way kind of story that mom's giving you, that actually, no, that's not what's happening. Because it doesn't sound like anyone's giving you guys a chance to even see any of it.
That's why I said no chance whatsoever for anyone. In other words, given no options, no chance to do anything.
Right. And it sounds like your dad really needs that from you guys, to help him out here, because it doesn't sound like they're taking his side at all whatsoever.
Yeah, we're more than happy to be that, like I said before, moral support, because, God knows we all need it. Nobody wants to be alone,
Yeah, exactly.
They're burdened on their own. So definitely we're here to help him, because we know that he's being accused and he's not guilty,
Yeah.
And honestly, the way that, like I said, the things have been going when it comes to, it seems discrimination on his part, for not only for being a man, but for his Native American blood and things of that nature. It just seems all, it's too much. They're doing so many things wrong, and as we said before, we're breaking so many laws. I honestly can't keep track most of the time. And I want to think about it and wish I could count them on one hand or two hands, but I can't. I can't keep up. There's too much. And I'm sure they're very aware, but I try to keep up with their life, and it's just too many laws. I'm hearing one after the other that's broken, but nobody cares, because they walk onto a farm and seemingly assume naturally that these people are uneducated, and they can just rip their kids away, and they're not going to do anything, try to get them back. They're not going to fight back.
I think it is so cool. I think that is like awesome. I would love to be on a farm,
Definitely, and most kids would, and I know I loved it growing up. I mean, who would not aspire to do that? Because most people are like, in the past, historically, we're like, oh, we're going to go to the big city and be somebody, because, we grew up on a farm, and now there's so much big city. Everybody's like, man, we want to go be on a farm, so it's like, honestly, they're living the dream out there, and they really were. There was never a time there wasn't a smile on their face. They weren't, abundantly fed. They may not have eaten their food all the time, but there was always food. There was always everything they needed, to the extent to which that their mother could take that food and stroll it around the house and say the house was a mess all the time, because there's that much food. They didn't eat it all the time, but they had it. It was there. If they were ever hungry, they had what they needed.
Right. Wow. I really hate that they do that, where they just listen to one parent, out of convenience for them in their case, and to destroy all the lives, on Miss Georgette's show this morning, actually, they were saying that when somebody calls CPS, or when CPS is involved, it's like opening Pandora's box for everybody in the family, and it is so right that, I just, oh God, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry for you guys having to go through this, and your poor dad. He has had visits with Zoom, or just recently? I forgot what you said. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Zoom calls,
He
yes.
has had Zoom calls recently, but consider this being, so long since the whole incident. So it's been, like I said, almost a year. He's had no physical visits. I have not even had the luxury of so much as a Zoom call, because I'm a sibling and I'm demonized, by the opposing party, but who is the accuser, but I think it's important to note too that there, not only were none of us given a chance to visit him, but the accusers were. So I consider the part of my family that was being demonized, who are not the accusers, in other words, had no visitation whatsoever.
Before all this happened, were you guys able to be around the kids a lot? Like, did they know you guys pretty well?
Yeah, definitely. We grew up together. It was a big old happy family, and they took that away from us. But, you know,
I would mention that to the lawyers and let them know that, you know, that it's for the kids, you know, their best interest for them to still be a part of your lives and the other family members as well. And that you guys want to request to be able to have visitation with them. And, you know, if any of you guys are interested in having the kids stay with you, I'd really push for that, you know.
And I have done that several times.
We had asked for the 2 younger ones to stay with us temporarily until they were released back into their father's care.
Ultimately, we've been
seemed to have just flown by.
And what are they telling you the reason why you cannot have the kids there? No good reason?
What I'm saying before was pretty much there's no real reason.
No real reason.
None.
Didn't ask about
The
us.
only thing we know is that we're being demonized by the opposing party that they seem to favor, you know, to some degree. We've been demonized. We apparently have no hope at this point for winning because the opposing party is just in the right because it, you know, serves the agenda of CPS.
Right. That's what it sounds like. But I would definitely think about getting a way to get your voices out to the judge, you know, so the courts can see that, you know, that mom is causing a lot of this, you know, BS, and that, you know, it's not necessarily true, and that the kids are better off with family. And, you know, the courts need to be able to know that. And if they're not giving you a chance to do that, that's just ridiculous. And especially, you know, he has a private attorney. That's really good. I would talk to him first and let them know that you guys want to have the kids there, and tell CPS to give you a written response of why they are not allowing you to have the 2 kids, you know, because they need to give you something.
Yeah. Nobody ever asked about us, what we do for a living, where we live, how many kids we have, you know, anything. Nobody asked about us. Yeah. Nobody interviewed us. So I just think that they're just going with, like he said, whatever the opposing party says, and we don't even get to defend ourselves.
Definitely, and as we both said in the beginning, no chance whatsoever. So, in other words, that covers as well, you know, the potential even of us having the chance to do that because we've not even been considered. And if we dare to ask about it, it seems, you know, it feels that way. If we dare to ask them or oppose them in any type of way, I'm sorry, we are kind of met with resistance. But what I think is really funny is how you don't let any of the family, even the ones not being directly accused, visit their siblings, even for moral support, for their psychological well-being, anything like that. No visitation whatsoever, as if you're intentionally trying to not only traumatize but torment these kids. And I think it's entirely unfair that the opposing party is being so, you know, being met with such, you know, grace, and we are not. To the extent that would, you know, her accusations are enough to stop all of us from visiting our family. Yet she is the one who all of our family knows throws urine on the babies, you know, beats up on children, smacks her daughter around, you know, and to the extent that some of my younger brothers told my dad at one point, they, you know, children saying the craziest things, that they, you know, thought they wanted to commit suicide because their mother apparently was telling them that they weren't worth anything. Children don't think those things. It's very adult-like to think, to kill yourself. You have so many young aspirations when you're young, you know, and there's just no way unless someone's feeding that into your ears. So I believed them 100%. You know, I'm like, you know, that's surely, and I know their mother. I grew up around their mother. I lived for years in the back room of our house because I chose to, because she was present at all times, and I was so traumatized by her and all the abusive things she'd done to me, you know, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was mentally overwhelmed to the extent that I had to go lock myself in a room for years, you know, and I wouldn't come out for anybody because I couldn't do it. I couldn't see her face. I was a scared child, you know?
Yeah. That's why it'd be really important for you and whoever else knows all this about her to just write it out. I had a friend once write a letter to the family judge, and I thought she was like so crazy, like they're never going to listen to that, like you're wasting your time. But she actually won her case because of it. They weren't allowing her to go on the stand. They weren't allowing her to talk at all. Her ex was doing the same kind of thing. And because of that letter, it changed the entire case, and she won.
That's good.
So I don't know if you guys want to try to do that too, but it sounds like you have plenty of people around you that know her behaviors and can, vouch and tell the courts that, she's wrong and ruining everyone's lives here.
Definitely. I want to clarify too, in case I didn't, that definitely she, being the one who's actually abusing the children, she is actually the one, just to make entirely clear to you, that was being allowed the visitation rights. She has gotten to see her kids, but she's the one who was actually in the wrong. And it's and I understand that the remaining impartial, they should consider both sides are not guilty until proven guilty, or innocent until proven guilty. But my dad and the entire family, no visitation when it comes to her, and she's the one in the wrong. Oh, definitely. Kind of the way they seem to choose the caretakers. Like, have you done something wrong in the past? Okay. You got a bad rap? Okay, we'll put the kids with you.
Yeah, it's really crazy, but it really seems that CPS likes to put the kids back with the abusers, like more times than I can even count. And why, I have no idea, but it's really twisted. And you are so right. They absolutely do that.
It seems very evident that they are out to traumatize the kids, because like you said, they will put them back with the abuser. But, most of the time they don't put them back with the person not abusing them. They're traumatizing these kids outright. I'd say that they are looking for that. It feels like, it almost seems like they want to traumatize them,
Or they're putting the children with people who have no business fostering children. We're not particularly fond of any of the caregivers. One of the ones with the younger children thinks it's funny to post them publicly on social media.
Yeah.
Including they're not supposed to do that, if I'm right.
I think she thought she was okay because the faces were blurred out. But I mean, anyone can see how many kids you have in your home, their ages, their names. It's just insane. The other one apparently is married to a man who has substance abuse problems, who has been in and out of jail because of drinking while driving.
Oh, wow.
Apparently he's around.
But they won't let you guys be around the kids. That just drives me crazy.
The foster parent that has the older siblings has a farm, and we believe that the kids are made to do, for lack of a better term, child labor on the farm. It's a mess. The more we uncover it, the worse it gets.
Definitely. They're not being allowed to go anywhere either.
No.
So, you take them from one place, lock them up in another place, they're no better off than in the place where they were supposedly locked up before, or at least they were living well there and enjoyed what they were doing. But now they're just, suffering. And okay, that's fine. This is better. This is a good solution. Let's take this over the whole country. Let's attack the Amish too while we're at it.
Another concern was, he said that they weren't able to go anywhere. I had recently found on social media that the foster parents were in a picture where it looked like they were like on a fishing trip, but the kids were nowhere in sight in that picture. And I'm just thinking, if the kids are saying they're not being able to go anywhere, but the foster parents are taking these trips, who's watching the kids?
Yeah, really good point.
That's a big reason for concern.
And apparently, with the younger ones, people who may have not been vetted to be around the children are able to watch them. Apparently, what did your father say? A weird boyfriend or guy was watching the younger ones?
Yeah, something of that nature, and definitely
people we don't even know.
Yeah, and on that same subject, just to be brief, I recall one of the caretakers, we had looked on Facebook and we saw her posting that stuff, and she said, I just got my license, and immediately 2 kids were handed to me. And she was
Within days.
just so happy about it. She decided to post that on social media and let's get a screenshot. And it's like, thank you, but then again, kind of upsetting on the part of CPS.
There's no proper preparation. I don't feel like these people are properly being investigated. I mean, the lady had just earned her license before she got custody of the two little ones. Not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's concerning because you would think she would have a certain amount of time under her belt before she got custody of these children, and it was just like as soon as she was licensed, the floodgates were open, and the kids were just thrown off on her. Like, okay, well, we're covered because she's licensed.
Definitely.
Yeah. And considering that she just got her license and they give her the youngest ones, that's not good either. And I do understand that there is some pretty bad people out there, but I think most of the time the kids are better off with family members, and the social workers are supposed to place them with families first. And if they can't figure out a family member, then they place them with somebody else, but they haven't even tried that at all with you guys. No. And that's really upsetting. I would really push that with the lawyers that, this is not okay. And because of the neglect of the social worker, these kids are suffering and they're not allowed to be around their family members.
Definitely. There's definitely religious persecution, I believe, involved as well, to the extent that they will, they know that these are all Christian children, and they've been raised that way. And obviously they're not allowed to dress inappropriately, ideally, that's what they're taught. They're dressed inappropriately by the caretakers on occasions, apparently, with the, said strange man that was watching them while they were on their fishing trip. They were put in chokers and lipstick and just, a little strange for a child, and it seems as if people are trying to not only take them away from their family, but take them away from their roots and their beliefs and what they've been taught. And they've been they're almost seemingly being pushed to abandon all beliefs, and take up a image that they would rather them, display.
Yeah. I hear a lot that they do this. Like they'll put a Christian child in a home, where they're, completely the opposite, where they're Islamic or they're, whatever. And they do this like quite frequently. And I don't understand it at all, because these kids are already so confused and traumatized. Yeah. And then you put them in a religious situation that they do not understand or know at all. And it's so uncomfortable and, traumatizing for these kids. And I don't understand the purpose why they do this, but they do it a lot. A lot.
And the amount of children that are being abused by foster parents or even adoptive parents is astronomically higher than those that are being abused in their own homes. I've done a lot of research into this case because I want as much firepower as I can have. And we've got cases in the state of Missouri being sued because this little girl was released to her abuser 2 and 3 times. And then you've got another guy who was a foster parent and he was accused of sexually abusing these children. And then finally someone else said we've had enough. And then finally he got locked away. But he had something like 36 kids in his care over the course of 20 years. And I'm like, what does it take? I don't think these people are properly vetted. I just think they'll throw these kids out to anyone because they get paid. They get paid to do this. They have an incentive. They get funding, and it's a scheme. It's a scheme to lack of a better word, kidnap and traffic these kids. And we've got people making light of it. I don't know if I had talked on it earlier, but a mother had sued the state. And they were all colluding and making jokes about how they were trafficking kids and what they were going to name their business. It's really disgusting.
Really? Yeah. That's disturbing.
And it's not just here. It's in other states too. I've looked it up. And people who try to combat it or, blow the whistle are getting killed. They're getting murdered.
Yep.
We have 2 senators who have been killed because they opposed CPS and CPS's guidelines.
Yep, you're 100% right. It's so alarming, and it's an epidemic. These kids are getting kidnapped, basically. People who try to stand up for it are getting killed left and right. It's very scary, but I really admire what you guys are doing. Your family members are really lucky to have you guys. We're just about out of time here. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to share before we wrap?
One more thing on my part. I'd say as good a dad, and honestly, my mother and my father, as good parents as they were, which ultimately were the ones taking care of the accuser's children because she was never a mother to them, obviously. We're very good growing up, and to the extent that the entire reason that she was living with them was out of their charity, basically, because, she had no ambition in life to apparently do anything on her own and didn't want to go anywhere. But you have to consider as well that at the time that this happened, and it had been speculated, and then there was a little bit of a conversation that proved it at one point. She decided that she wanted to act at that time to accuse my dad of these things because of the COVID stimulus thing that was going on for children at the time. Yeah. She wanted to claim all that, and she'd never seen large amounts of money. I'm sure she thought that would, get her somewhere in life, but it wouldn't, keep you afloat for 2 months. But she wouldn't, that was her goal. And so, that is it's a little disturbing that they're taking her side.
Yeah, my mother did the same thing to me right when the COVID thing happened, and she found out she could get money for my daughter. She was all over again. Yeah. Oh man. Definitely. Well, I really, really appreciated you guys coming on the show. It was really nice talking to you. I really wish you the best, and I would love if you guys would come back and update us after you guys hopefully win this and bring the kids back. Fingers crossed, right?
Definitely. I'm happy to.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for viewing the show. If anyone else out there is interested in sharing their story, please let us know. We would love to have you on. Samantha, Elijah, thank you guys again so very much. And everybody have a great night, great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Good night.